Hi, Mike Overy from the BDC Experts. Welcome to BDC Tune-Up Tuesdays. Today's subject matter, service BDC minimum standards. You see, in any BDC, especially in service, we have to have some expectations. It can't be that all it is they answer the phone. I see two types of service BDC out in the marketplace, either a second switchboard or what I call a business development environment. So let me give you some basic guidelines of what you should be looking for. Activities per day, in other words, inbound and outbound, should be 80 plus per person. Contact ratio should be in that 40% plus. Now that's a combination because, as you can imagine, the inbound calls coming in, you've automatically got 100% contact ratio. The outbound is usually running around that 20-25%, so a blend of about 40% plus. Your appointment volume per person should be 35 appointments per day plus. And last but not least, your show ratio should be in that 90% plus range. Now, they're minimum standards. These are expectations that you should have in the room. It cannot be that when you put people in the room who are taking inbound and doing outbound calls, that whatever they do is okay. We have to have an expectation, a goal, and we have to hold people accountable to that. Now, let's look at that outbound part of it. 40% of the activities per day should be outbound. That's where we're contacting customers, whether it's maintenance notifications, whether it's just that we're following up with customers at the maintenance point, whether we're phoning back declined work, whatever those outbound call ratios are, we need at least 40% activity from outbound. On the other side of that is obviously 50 to 60% is now going to be those inbound calls that our service BDC is now going to be handling. We need to have 85 to 90% appointment ratio, certainly on those inbound. The calls that aren't able to appoint are normally those calls where the customer is starting to get a little bit more deeper into conversation, maybe price issues, but most of those we can handle. And that's where they're redirected, a warm redirect to the service advisor or to a service manager so they can handle those calls. That shouldn't be more than about 10%. 90% of them should be able to be handled and should be able to be appointed on that first call. We look at 90% show ratio. Now, you won't get a 90% show ratio or higher unless not only are you managing those appointments and managing them through technology. We find now that text is probably the best way to get a high show ratio. If you're making confirmation calls, in other words, your service BDC is actually phoning the customer the day before, what you're doing there is you're making your service BDC unproductive because you're giving a person somewhere in the region of 100 calls, because if you've got 30 or 40 appointments that you're confirming, they've got to phone those customers multiple times to be able to manage them. And you can use technology. Text is a very, very easy way for customers to be able to confirm that appointment. Last but not least, your BDC supervisor or manager, you must be monitoring their activity at least 3 times a day. In sales, we do it every hour. In service, it's a little bit different because those inbound calls are coming in very sporadically. So consequently, 3 times a day, we should be making sure that those operatives are running at the level that we want them to run at, so that we can make sure they do hit that 35 to 40 appointments a day and we get full productivity out of the room. Service BDC can be one of the most profitable and impactful things you can have in your dealership, especially in the service department. But it has to be where we have a expectation that it's higher than what we've had before. We are the BDC experts. We have the expertise. Stay tuned.